who was my greatest rival. That's like Ali and Frazier. You know, he was so special to me. But we didn't have a relationship. Like, we were competitors. We weren't friends, but we weren't enemies. There was this unspoken level of respect and admiration and fear of each other. And in 2005, that was the 7th tour, and he got second, as he did several times. His press officer called our press officer and said, Jan wants to come speak at the celebration. And Jan's English is not very good now, so you can imagine what it was like back then. And I was like, what? And they said, yeah, man, the guy says he wants to come over. So he fucking came to the party in front of 600 rabid American fans and spoke. Like, it was fucking mind-blowing. It was the greatest.
What was the kind of tenor of what he said? We have the video.
I'll again, we had such a healthy rivalry and tough rivalry, and he's a unique guy in that he was very soft-spoken, very simple, and his English wasn't great, but he had no qualms about standing up in front of 600 people and tipping his cap to me. And that was in 2005, so almost 20 years ago, and we now had this wild journey together through his, through his life, right? Through addiction, through rehabs. It's been an intense, call it 5 years that I've lived with him, and now we're very, very close. I mean, like brothers.
And he's clean now.
Jan has been sober for he's been sober for 26 months. That's awesome. And I think he's good. I think he's good. There was a couple go rounds. I mean, he was, and he tells this story. Amazon just did a 4-part documentary about his entire life, he's had you talk about trauma. Really? I mean, you can't believe the trauma growing up in East Germany, being this prodigy, that system with sports, and then the wall comes down, and then seemingly overnight he becomes, bigger than Boris Becker. Boris Becker
I was a huge Becker fan.
Yeah, so he's bigger than Becker. He's got everything, but he's not equipped to handle that, and he certainly wasn't equipped to handle what it was like when the world said, "You're now a zero." And he went off the rails. And so the documentary is 4 parts. It's in German. They sent it to me. I sat for many, many interviews for the documentary. And so they sent it to me with the subtitles. It's special. And hopefully they'll bring it to the US. But yeah, he's sober. His kids are back in his life. And he was supposed to come over a couple months ago. We were going to have a training camp. Yeah. He was fucking terrified, but something happened. Like, they went to check in and they were like, Homeland Security says, when he was off the rails, he also did some less than savory things.
Understood.
And so we're working through that and trying to get him back over here. But
is he still riding now?
That's his rides. Yes. He's very simple. He hangs out with his kids. He rides his bike. He does a little promotional stuff.
Did he make good money back then?
I would think so. He still has, but when you're off the rails and
you can go through a lot very quickly.
Through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But, I will look, I love, this is, he's a very special person. So he doesn't ever need to worry about money as far as I'm concerned.
I love the way you're talking about him. It's very cool.
Dude. Well, we just had this, again, we never talked. Like, we'd shake hands on the start line, and if we crossed the finish line together, we'd shake hands. Like, I couldn't have told you what his birthday was. I couldn't have told you what his wife's name was. I couldn't have told you where he went to vacation in the wintertime. Like, I didn't know this guy. But it was this mutual fear of each other, and arguably way more on my end. I was always like, what the fuck is Jan doing right now? Like, is he lean? Is he ready? How's he training? Like, what's his power to weight ratio? Like, Jan probably thought about that a little bit, but he's a little more laid back. He's really like, yeah, but this motherfucker scared me. So I was like, anybody that scares you, get up and you do your best, right? Like, this guy's not going to get a piece of me. And it's the reason that ultimately I entered his life 5 years ago, because he had pushed everybody away. And his friends said, you're the only person that ever scared him. Yeah. I said, I will be there tomorrow. So I left Austin and flew straight to Germany. And that was the first time. And
it's interesting that
up a little bit. And then
it's interesting that there's a 5 years ago, there was feels like a huge shift that you mentioned it earlier, but like now knowing how you showed up for Jan in that moment, like I'm not a psychologist by any means, but it's just, there's something really, like Lindsay was talking about it earlier, like being of service. You were of service, and there's something that, like, I know for myself, when things aren't going well, I'm in a funk. If I can just find a way to be of service, I can see the world differently.
Right. Totally. And it takes something big like that. I mean, look, you're a parent, you're a father. I always think that that's like the highest level of service, is just making sure your kids aren't complete lunatics. But this is different. This is being on this journey with him, and I mean, you hear the way I talk about him. I mean, he's so special. Obviously, my children are very special. My wife is very special, but just this, God, it's been a 25-year journey with him. Like, it's fucking crazy.
Dude, there's a really like true reverence when I can just feel it when you're talking about him, and you almost get a little emotional about it. Of course.
Yeah, well, of course I do, because on so many levels, right? He didn't, it may be just because it's easier for me to look at his situation. Like, I could look at my situation and say, well, that's not fair. Mm-hmm. It's not fair that the world took me from hero to zero, and George Hincapie and Christian Vandeveld and all of my peers in America got a pass. I could look at that and say, well, that's not fair. That's not for me to say. It is a lot easier, naturally, for me to look at Jan, or me to look at Pantani, who's now dead, and say, well, that wasn't fair. Right? What you guys did to him, others are dead. Jan tried to be dead. The way you treated him and you gave passes, there's no balance in that. That's not fair. So that then makes me mad, right? Because the consequences, it's not like we're saying, well, what do you care? He lost endorsements, or what do you care? The headline said he's a disgrace. No. Yeah, they did say all that, and all that shit did happen. But there's a handful of guys that are dead. Here's one that was almost dead. So how we feel now, guys, like, that's fucked up. So then you get angry about it. Yeah. And then man, I'm just like, no, I'm not letting this happen again. Mm-hmm. And he was the only guy that, I mean, because Pantani and I had a more acrimonious relationship, and we're not friendly. And I didn't fear him in the way that I feared Jan, but I did fear him, just not to that level. And the day, I mean, I'll never forget, the day that somebody called me and said they found him in a seedy hotel room in Milan, dead of a cocaine overdose. I mean, I never had anything good to say about that guy. We take these awful jabs at each other in the press and call each other names and talk shit in the race. And somebody calls me, it's like, Pantani's dead. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, because they destroyed him. So I wanted to fight for Jan, and I'm so proud of him. And